Kingdom Come Deliverance. Alright, let's talk about Kingdom Come Deliverance, a game that's as real as it gets when it comes to medieval RPGs. This one doesn't hold your hand, and that's what makes it stand out. It throws you into 1400s Bohemia, where you play as Henry, a regular dude who's just trying to survive after his village gets wiped out. There's no chosen one nonsense here. Henry starts out knowing nothing, and you've got to grind to get him skilled in anything, from fighting to reading. Yeah, reading. That's how deep this game goes. The crazy thing about Kingdom Come is how damn realistic it is. Forget swinging a sword like a pro from the get-go. You'll be stumbling around in combat, getting wrecked by bandits, and learning the hard way that you're not some medieval superhero. The combat system is tough, and you've got to pay attention to your positioning, timing, and stamina. It's not just about mashing buttons, there's a real skill to it, and once it clicks, it feels so damn satisfying. And hell, this game doesn't care if you're in a rush. It's slow-paced with quests that take time and decisions that have real consequences. You'll be riding across the countryside, talking to villagers, getting lost in forests, and trying to navigate medieval politics. It's immersive as hell, but it's also not for everyone. If you're used to fast-paced action, this game might feel like a grind at first, but stick with it, it's worth it. The world itself is gorgeous, especially considering it's a more grounded take on medieval Europe. No dragons, no magic, just castles, villages, and dense forests. The attention to detail is nuts, right down to how you have to maintain your armor and weapons. If you let them get dirty or broken, you're in trouble. It's all about survival and realism, and that's something you don't see often in RPGs. Of course, it's not perfect. Kingdom Come got a lot of heat for being buggy at launch, with janky animations and some weird glitches that pulled you out of the experience. Over time, they patched a lot of it, but yeah, it was rough around the edges. Some people also didn't vibe with how slow and unforgiving the game could be, especially if you're not used to RPGs that make you work for every inch of progress. But damn, if you're into realistic, hardcore medieval role-playing where every decision matters, Kingdom Come Deliverance is one crazy ride. It's one of those games that'll either hook you with its depth or frustrate you with its difficulty. But if you've got the patience, you won't regret jumping into this brutal, beautiful world. Allan Wake. Allan Wake is one of those games that creeps up on you and sticks in your head long after you've finished it. It's not your typical action game, it's more like playing through a psychological thriller where every shadow could be hiding something ready to kill you. The vibe is straight up eerie, and if you're into mystery and horror, this one's going to have you hooked from the first scene. You play as Allan Wake, a writer who's struggling with some serious writer's block. He heads to a small town called Bright Falls with his wife to clear his head, but things get weird real quick. His wife disappears, and suddenly the stuff Allan's been writing in his latest manuscript, stuff he doesn't even remember writing, starts happening in real life, and it's terrifying. Shadows come to life, attacking you, and the only way to fight them off? In a flashlight and some good old-fashioned bullets. It sounds simple, but the way the game makes you juggle light and darkness adds a whole new level of tension to every encounter. The story is where Allan Wake really shines. It's like playing through a Stephen King novel mixed with a bit of Twin Peaks weirdness. Every chapter has you diving deeper into this twisted narrative, with bits of Allan's manuscript pages scattered around, giving you creepy little hints of what's coming next. It's one of those stories that keeps you guessing, and by the end, you'll be questioning everything you thought you knew. The combat isn't as complex as some other games, but it's intense as hell. You're constantly trying to manage your flashlight batteries, keep your ammo stocked, and stay out of the darkness, because that's where the enemies that can come for you. They're fast, they're creepy, and they'll swarm you if you're not careful. Visually, for its time, Allan Wake was stunning. The way the game plays with light and shadow isn't just for show, it's a core part of the gameplay, and it really makes the world feel alive and dangerous. And the town of Bright Falls, it's the perfect setting for a mystery like this. Quiet, picturesque, but always with this underlying sense that something's not quite right. Sure, it's got some pacing issues, and the combat can feel repetitive after a while, but the atmosphere and story more than make up for it. It's one of those games where the plot grabs you and doesn't let go, even if the gameplay isn't always pushing the envelope. If you're looking for a game that's more about mood, mystery, and a story that'll keep you up at night, Allan Wake is 100% worth playing. It's a slow burn, but damn, when it gets under your skin, you won't forget it. HiFi Rush. Alright, HiFi Rush is like one of those games that just comes out of nowhere and completely blows you away. Imagine a rhythm-based action game mixed with a Saturday morning cartoon. It's crazy fun, vibrant, and honestly you'll be tapping your feet to the beat the whole time. This game is all about combining slick combat with music, and somehow it just works so damn well. You play as Chai, a wannabe rock star who gets caught up in this weird experiment where his heart syncs up with the world around him, meaning everything in the game combat, environment, even the story moves to the rhythm of the soundtrack. And the soundtrack? Absolute bangers. It's full of rock and electronic beats that keep the energy high from start to finish. The combat is where HiFi Rush really shines. It's a hack and slash game, but the twist is that you get rewarded for attacking to the beat. You don't have to follow the rhythm, but if you do, your combos hit harder, your moves look cooler, and you feel like you're nailing it every time you land a perfectly timed attack. It's this fusion of rhythm and combat that makes it stand out from any other action game. Plus, the visual style is slick as hell, bright, colorful, and full of personality. The animations are smooth, and everything just pops on screen like you're playing through a comic book. The bosses are another highlight. Each one is unique, both in how they look and how they fight. They've all got their own musical vibe, which affects how you approach them. You'll need to learn their patterns and keep up with the rhythm, or they'll knock you down fast. It's challenging, but in that fun, rewarding way. The story itself is lighthearted and doesn't take itself too seriously. It's full of humor, over-the-top characters, and just enough charm to keep you engaged between battles. Chai's whole "I'm just here to rock" attitude might seem goofy, but it fits perfectly with the game's carefree, energetic tone. It's a game that knows it's here to make you have a good time, and it absolutely delivers on that. HiFi Rush might not be the longest game, but it's a wild, fun, and refreshing ride while it lasts. If you're looking for something that's packed with energy, a killer soundtrack, and gameplay that's all about rhythm and fun, this game is a must-play. You won't regret picking it up, and you'll be humming along long after you put the controller down. Murdered Soul Suspect.
He's killed before, and he'll kill again.
Murdered Soul Suspect is one of those games with a concept that grabs you right away. You're a detective solving your own murder. Yeah, you heard that right. You play as Ronan O'Connor, a hard-boiled detective in Salem who gets killed during a case. But instead of moving on to the afterlife, you're stuck as a ghost, forced to piece together what happened and who's responsible for your death. The premise is damn cool, and the game leans into the whole supernatural detective vibe. As a ghost, you've got access to abilities that let you move through walls, possess people, and read their thoughts. You can also influence objects to create distractions, which is a neat way to manipulate the environment without being able to physically interact with it. You'll spend most of the game investigating crime scenes, gathering clues, and putting the pieces together to solve not only your murder, but a string of other weird cases tied to Salem's dark history. What sets Murdered Soul Suspect apart is its atmosphere. Salem is creepy as hell, with its old buildings, dark streets, and a history of witch trials hanging over everything. The game does a great job of making you feel like you're walking through a haunted town, and as a ghost, you'll come across other spirits with their own tragic backstories, which adds to the whole eerie vibe. But here's where things get a bit shaky. The actual gameplay is more on the slow side. You're doing a lot of detective work, piecing together clues, talking to other ghosts, and solving puzzles, but there isn't much action to break it up. The combat is minimal, and when it does pop up, it's not the best. You're mostly sneaking around avoiding these demon creatures that can kill you, and while the first couple of encounters are tense, it does start to feel repetitive pretty fast. The story is where the game shines though. The mystery is interesting enough to keep you hooked, and there are plenty of twists and turns to keep you guessing about who's behind it all. The game's got heart, and you can tell they tried to make it more about the journey than just the action. At the end of the day, Murdered Soul Suspect is definitely more of a slow burn game. If you're into crime solving, ghost stories, and a supernatural twist, it's worth checking out. It's not without its flaws, mainly the slow pace and clunky mechanics, but the premise alone makes it a unique experience. You won't regret giving it a go, especially if you're down for a quieter, more story-driven game.
Murder on the Orient Express.
To get you to Paris in time for your connection to London.
Alright, if you're into classic murder mysteries, Murder on the Orient Express by Microids is a game that'll hit the spot. It's based on the famous Agatha Christie novel, but with a few twists that keep things fresh, even if you already know the story. You're stepping into the shoes of a new character named Joanna Locke, working alongside the legendary detective Hercule Poirot to solve one of the most famous whodunits ever. What's really cool about this game is the way it captures the feel of that old school locked room mystery vibe. You're stuck on a fancy train with a bunch of colorful characters, and you know one of them is a killer. The game does a great job of letting you feel like a detective, asking the right questions, snooping around for clues, and piecing everything together. You'll have those classic interrogation scenes where you're trying to figure out who's lying, and damn, it feels good when you start narrowing down the suspects. The atmosphere on the train is perfect. You've got this fancy, luxurious environment, but it's tense as hell because you know something terrible has happened. The train itself almost feels like a character with its tight corridors, elegant cabins, and that sense of claustrophobia that makes everything feel just a little more intense. You can't just hop off the train, you're stuck there with a murderer, and that adds to the tension big time.
The wallet is somewhat warm.
Gameplay-wise, it's more about exploration and dialogue than action, but if you're into solving puzzles and cracking cases, it's solid. You'll spend a lot of time looking for clues and piecing them together in Poirot's famous little gray cells. Some puzzles are a bit tricky, and yeah, there's a bit of pixel hunting which can get annoying, but it's all part of the classic point-and-click experience. The game also introduces some new twists that weren't in the original story, which keeps things interesting even if you're familiar with the plot. Without spoiling too much, let's just say there's more going on here than you might expect, and it adds a fun layer to the mystery. If you're a fan of Agatha Christie murder mysteries, or just love solving a good puzzle, Murder on the Orient Express is definitely worth checking out. It's not the flashiest game out there, but damn, it's got that classic detective feel that'll make you feel like a real sleuth. You won't regret jumping aboard this train.
Have you told me the entire truth, Captain Arbuthnot?
Of course. I want you to find my ticket.
Yakuza like a dragon.
And we're about to rise to the top.
Man, if you thought the Yakuza series couldn't get any crazier, wait until you dive into Yakuza like a dragon. This game flips the whole franchise on its head, and somehow, it just works so damn well. It's not just a typical beat EM up anymore this time around, it's a turn-based RPG with all the over-the-top charm that makes Yakuza, well, Yakuza. And trust me, it's wild in the best way. First off, you're not playing as Kazuma Kiryu this time, but don't sweat it. Instead, you step into the shoes of Ichiban Kasuga, and let me tell you, this dude is a breath of fresh air. He's got a big heart, a love for classic RPGs, which explains the game's wild turn-based combat, and a knack for getting into the most ridiculous situations. Ichiban's story starts out rough. He's betrayed by the people he trusts and left to fend for himself, but instead of getting all grim and serious, the game leans into its absurdity. You'll be laughing 1 minute and tearing up the next, and somehow it balances both perfectly. The combat is where things get crazy. It's like a traditional JRPG, but with a Yakuza twist. You'll be picking jobs for your party. Yup, there's a whole job system, leveling up, and using hilarious and sometimes bizarre special attacks like summoning literal lobsters or throwing pigeons at enemies. It sounds ridiculous, and it is, but it's also a ton of fun. The turn-based system doesn't slow the game down at all. In fact, it keeps the fights just as exciting as the old brawler style, but now with a bit of strategy thrown in. And then there's Yokohama, the new setting. It's huge, vibrant, and packed with things to do. Whether you're hitting up arcades, playing karaoke, running a business empire, or just getting lost in the endless side quests which are as wacky and heartfelt as ever, the city feels alive. Every corner has something new to discover, and honestly, the side stuff is just as entertaining as the main story. But what really sticks with you in Like a Dragon is the characters. Ichiban is such a lovable goofball, and the friends he makes along the way, like Namba, a homeless ex-nurse, and Adichie, a disgraced cop, are all memorable. Their bond feels real, and by the end of the game, you'll be rooting for these underdogs like they're your own crew. Look, Yakuza Like a Dragon is not your typical RPG, and that's what makes it so damn fun. It's got heart, humor, and some of the most absurd moments you'll see in a game, all wrapped up in a story that actually hits hard when it needs to. Whether you're a longtime Yakuza fan or new to the series, you won't regret taking this wild ride with Ichiban. Max Payne 3. Now, Max Payne 3, damn, this game took a hard left turn from the Noire vibes of the first two, but it still hits hard. It's darker, grittier, and full of that same bullet time action we all loved, but with a much more broken down Max. This isn't the trench coat wearing neo-noir detective in the rainy streets of New York anymore. Max is older, he's tired, and he's really drowning in his demons. The story takes you to Sao Paulo, Brazil, where Max is working as a bodyguard for some rich family. But as always with Max, things go south fast. The rich guy's wife gets kidnapped, and Max gets pulled into a world of crime, corruption, and absolute chaos. What's cool about Max Payne 3 is how Rockstar managed to keep Max's inner monologue sharp as ever. Even though he's spiraling deeper into his own misery, he's drinking too much, popping pills like candy, and questioning every choice he's ever made, but that's what makes him so damn compelling. The gameplay? Classic Max Payne. Bullet time is back, and it feels so satisfying. You'll be diving through windows, sliding across the floor, and pulling off those slow-mo headshots that make you feel like an action movie star. The gunplay is tight, and every gunfight feels like it could be straight out of a John Woo flick. The physics and animations are crazy good every shot. Every dive, every impact feels real and brutal. One of the things that stands out about Max Payne 3 is its presentation. The game doesn't shy away from showing how rough Max's life has become. The visuals are gritty, and the game uses these cool, trippy cutscenes where you see flashes of Max's thoughts and memories, making everything feel chaotic and unstable just like Max's mind. It's stylish as hell and adds a lot to the atmosphere. Now, some fans weren't on board with the shift in setting. Gone are the rainy streets and grimy alleys of New York, replaced with the sun-drenched favelas of Brazil. But honestly, it works. The change of scenery breathes new life into the series, even if it feels like a whole new vibe. It's more brutal, more raw, and a lot bloodier, but that's what makes it feel fresh. The only downside? It's tough as hell. Max is fragile in this one, and you'll die a lot if you're not careful. But damn, when you pull off a perfect sequence of bullet time kills, it feels like pure magic. If you love the first two games and don't mind a bit of a tonal shift, Max Payne 3 is still a killer experience. It's dark, violent, and tragic, but in that classic Max Payne way that keeps you hooked. You won't regret stepping back into Max's shoes, even if they're a lot more beat up this time around. Sleeping Dogs. Sleeping Dogs is one of those hidden gems that flew under the radar for a lot of people, but if you're into open world games with a killer story and crazy combat, this one's an absolute must play. I think of it like GTA meets martial arts action, but with a deep dive into the gritty underworld of Hong Kong. It's got style, attitude, and some of the best hand-to-hand combat you'll find in any open-world game. You play as Wei Shen, an undercover cop trying to take down the triads from the inside. What's so damn good about the setup is that Wei's constantly caught between two worlds: his duty as a cop and the loyalty he's building with the criminal organization he's infiltrating. The story pulls you in right from the start, and it's got some intense, emotional moments that'll hit you hard. You're not just running errands for mob bosses, you're watching Wei struggle with his own identity and what's right or wrong in this violent world. The combat is where Sleeping Dogs really shines. Most open world games lean heavily on gunplay, but here it's all about brutal, bone-crunching martial arts combat. You're taking on gangs in street brawls, pulling off insane combos, and using the environment to your advantage. Slamming a guy's head into a wall or tossing him into a fish tank. Damn, it feels so good. The fighting system is smooth and makes every fight feel like a scene straight out of a kung fu movie. Don't get me wrong, there's gunplay too, but the melee combat is where the game goes from good to great. And let's talk about Hong Kong. The city is alive. It's not just a backdrop, it feels like a real breathing place. You've got street markets, high-rise buildings, neon signs lighting up the night, and tons of little details that make it feel like you're right in the middle of this sprawling metropolis. Whether you're driving fast cars through narrow alleys, racing motorcycles across bridges, or just exploring, the world is packed with things to do. There are street races, side missions, and collectibles, but it never feels overwhelming. It's all just part of this wild wild journey you're on. The driving in Sleeping Dogs is surprisingly fun too. You're weaving through traffic, pulling off stunts, and even hijacking cars while in motion. It's pure action movie madness. And the missions, they're a mix of everything undercover cop work, high-octane chases, gang fights, and more. The game keeps throwing fresh challenges at you so it never gets stale. If there's any knock on the game, it's that it didn't get the same level of attention as other big open world titles, but that's a damn shame because Sleeping Dogs does so much right. It's got a compelling story, top tier combat, and a world that's fun as hell to explore. If you're a fan of open world action games and haven't played Sleeping Dogs, you're seriously missing out. It's an underdog in the genre, but trust me, you won't regret giving this one a shot. Life is Strange.
I discovered I could reverse time.
Life is Strange is one of those games that really knows how to get you emotionally invested. You step into the shoes of Max Caulfield, a shy photography student who suddenly realizes she can rewind time. Sounds awesome, right? But things get deep real fast, and this isn't your typical time travel adventure. Every choice you make ripples out, creating consequences that aren't always easy to undo, even with time manipulation. What really makes this game stand out is Max's relationship with Chloe, her rebellious best friend. Their bond feels real messy and complicated, and as the story unfolds, you'll find yourself making some tough choices that'll make you stop and think. It's not just about saving the day, it's about navigating friendships, trauma, and the hard truths life throws at you. The vibe of Arcadia Bay, the town where the game is set, pulls you right in. It's this quiet coastal town with all the small town drama, secrets, and real life struggles that feel grounded. The art style is unique too, with this almost hand-painted look that suits the emotional tone of the game perfectly. And don't even get me started on the soundtrack, it's full of indie tracks that just fit the mood so well, making every scene feel personal and intimate.
20 years, you just zoned. No, I saw it.
The rewind mechanic is where things get interesting. It's not just a gimmick, you'll be using it constantly to tweak conversations, rethink decisions, and try to fix your mistakes. But here's the thing, even with the power to change time, some things are just out of your control. It gives the game this heavier, more thoughtful edge. You start to realize that every choice carries weight and sometimes there's no right answer. By the time you reach the end, you'll have gone through some real emotional highs and lows. The final decision, it's brutal, and it'll have you second guessing everything. There's no easy way out, and that's what makes it hit so hard. If you're looking for a story that feels human with characters that act like real people facing real problems, Life is Strange does that in spades. It's more about the journey than the destination, and trust me, that journey is unforgettable.
These visions, this power. I keep expecting to wake up one more time.
Telltale Walking Dead. Man, Telltale's The Walking Dead is a game that'll hit you right in the gut multiple times. This isn't your typical zombie game where you're mowing down hordes of the undead. Instead, it's all about the emotional weight of survival, the impossible choices, and the relationships that form in the midst of absolute chaos. You're not just trying to survive, you're trying to hold on to whatever shreds of humanity you have left. You play as Lee Everett, a guy with a complicated past who ends up taking care of this little girl named Clementine, and let me tell you, the relationship between Lee and Clem is what drives this game and makes it so damn impactful. From the very beginning, you're not just protecting her from zombies, you're guiding her, teaching her how to navigate a world that's gone to hell, and trying to make sure she grows up with some hope, even when everything around her is falling apart. The game's biggest strength. Those brutal, gut-wrenching decisions. Telltale makes sure that every choice feels like it matters, and there's no right or wrong option. You're constantly forced to choose between bad and worse, and sometimes those choices will haunt you for the rest of the game. It's not just about deciding who lives or dies, it's about who you trust, who you're willing to sacrifice, and what kind of person you're shaping Clementine to be. Damn, the game really knows how to put you on the spot. And don't even get me started on the emotional roller coaster. There are moments in this game that will wreck you. I'm talking about the kind of scenes that leave you staring at the screen, trying to process what just happened. The writing, the performances, it all feels so raw and real. You'll get attached to these characters, and Telltale is not afraid to rip your heart out by the end. The art style, with its comic book inspired look, gives it that unique vibe, staying true to the original graphic novels while adding its own flair. It's a bit rough around the edges, but that almost works in its favor. The world feels grimy, like it's barely hanging on, just like the characters. Telltale's The Walking Dead isn't about flashy action or shooting your way out of every situation. It's about surviving emotionally and morally in a world where everything is falling apart. If you're into story-driven games that make you think about the choices you've made long after the credits roll, this one's a must play. It's one hell of a ride, and by the end you'll be emotionally drained, but damn, it's worth it. Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons is one of those games that sneaks up on you with how simple it looks, then hits you with a story that's full of heart and emotional weight. It's a quiet, beautiful journey about two brothers on a quest to save their dying father, and let me tell you, it's a game that'll leave you feeling something deep by the time you're done. Here's the thing, this game is all about the bond between the two brothers, and it's reflected not just in the story but in how you play. You control both brothers at the same time, one with the left stick and the other with the right, and it's a little weird at first, but damn, when it clicks, it makes everything feel so much more connected. The older brother is stronger, able to pull levers and give the younger one a boost, while the younger brother can squeeze through tight spaces. You have to constantly think about how they work together, and that dynamic makes the gameplay feel super unique. The world you explore is stunning, like seriously beautiful. It's got this fairy tale vibe, but it's also full of darker moments that catch you off guard. You'll go from peaceful forests and quaint villages to more intense, emotional scenes that remind you that this journey is anything but easy. The art style is simple but packs a lot of charm, and the environments tell so much of the story without needing a ton of dialogue. Speaking of which, there's no real spoken language here. The characters speak in a made-up language, but the game doesn't need words to get its message across. The way the brothers interact, the little moments they share, and the situations they face, everything is communicated through their actions and the world around them. It's impressive how much the game makes you care about these characters without spelling it all out. Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons isn't a long game, it's something you can finish in a few hours, but damn, those few hours pack a punch. If you're looking for a game that's simple in mechanics but rich in emotion, this one's absolutely worth your time. You won't regret going on this journey with the two brothers. It's beautiful, heartfelt, and leaves a lasting impact. Hey guys, quick shout out to today's sponsor, Instant Gaming, my go-to spot for grabbing game keys at crazy good prices. Whether you're a PC player or gaming on consoles, they've got you covered with a huge selection of titles. Seriously, if you've been eyeing something on Steam, Xbox, or PlayStation, chances are you'll find it cheaper here. They've also got this super cool section for trending games and bestsellers, so if you're not sure what to pick up next, you can find what everyone's playing. And they've got a ton of pre-orders available to no more missing out on the latest releases. Oh, and it's not like those sketchy marketplaces. These games come straight from authorized resellers, so you know you're getting legit keys every time. Plus their Trustpilot score is solid, and they've got 24/7 customer service to help you out if needed. To sweeten the deal, we've teamed up to offer you guys a giveaway, so make sure to check out the link in the description where you can enter to win a game of your choice from Instant Gaming. And don't forget to use my link for an extra discount on your next game. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is exactly the kind of game Star Wars fans had been craving for years. It's got lightsaber duels, force powers, a story that actually respects the Star Wars lore, and a galaxy-spanning adventure that'll keep you hooked from start to finish. You play as Cal Kestis, a Jedi Padawan who survived Order 66, and now he's on the run, trying to rebuild what's left of the Jedi Order while being hunted by the Empire. It's a classic Star Wars tale of hope, redemption, and finding your place in a galaxy that's gone to hell. Right off the bat, the game nails that Star Wars atmosphere. The music, the sound effects, the locations, it's all spot on. You're exploring iconic planets, taking on stormtroopers, and unlocking force abilities that make you feel more and more like a Jedi. Jedi with every step. It's the kind of game that makes you stop for a second and go, damn, I'm really in the Star Wars universe. The combat is where Fallen Order shines. It's got that smooth, satisfying lightsaber action, but it's not just mindless button mashing, it's more tactical, a bit like Dark Souls, where you've got to parry, dodge, and think about each fight. The lightsaber battles feel weighty, and the enemies aren't pushovers. You'll face everything from stormtroopers to massive creatures, and of course the terrifying Inquisitors. The boss fights, in particular, are intense, especially when you go up against enemies who are just as strong in the Force as you are.
Keep fighting. That makes us who we are.
Exploration is also a huge part of the game. It's got that Metroidvania vibe where you're constantly unlocking new abilities that let you access areas you couldn't before. The planets are full of secrets, hidden upgrades, and lore that fleshes out the Star Wars universe in cool ways. It's not just a straight up linear adventure. You'll be revisiting planets, finding shortcuts, and using your growing set of Jedi powers to solve puzzles and take on tougher enemies. And let's talk about BD-1, your little droid companion. BD-1 is the unsung hero of the game. He's adorable, super helpful, and honestly you'll get attached to him real quick. He helps you heal, hack doors, and even zip line around like it's no big deal. It's classic Star Wars to have a droid sidekick, and BD-1 definitely lives up to the legacy of iconic droids like R2-D2 and BB-8. If you're a Star Wars fan, you need to play this, and even if you're not, it's still a damn good action-adventure game that stands on its own. You won't regret stepping into Cal's boots and taking on the Empire. Just Cause 3. Just Cause 3 is pure, unfiltered chaos, like the kind of game where you jump in, blow stuff up, and just have a ridiculous amount of fun doing it. If you're looking for deep storytelling or complex mechanics, this isn't that. But if you want to dive into a massive open world where explosions are basically a way of life, Just Cause 3 delivers that in spades. You play as Rico Rodriguez, and he's back to overthrow yet another dictator, this time in Medici, a beautiful Mediterranean island that's been turned into a war zone. The plot? Honestly, it's not much more than a backdrop for the mayhem. The real fun is in the sheer insanity of what you can do. Rico has a grappling hook, a wingsuit, and an endless supply of explosives, and that's all you really need to know. The whole game is about using those tools to cause as much destruction as humanly possible. The grappling hook is hands down one of the best mechanics in any game. You can tether objects together, pull down statues, hijack helicopters midair, or even attach a car to a gas tank and watch it fly off into the distance. It's all about creativity, and the game gives you so much freedom to experiment with how you blow things up. Combine that with the wingsuit and you're practically flying around the map, leaping off cliffs, soaring over enemy bases, and then diving straight into the action. It's wild and so satisfying. Medici is gorgeous, by the way. The island is massive, with beaches, mountains, towns, and military bases scattered all over. It's the kind of world that begs to be explored, not because you're looking for collectibles, though there are plenty, but because you want to see how you can blow everything up. The environments are so open and destructible that every encounter feels like a playground for chaos. Combat is over the top, and sometimes just plain ridiculous. You've got a huge arsenal of weapons, from rocket launchers to grenades, but what makes it stand out is how you can combine your grappling hook with the explosions, tie enemies to fuel tanks, shoot the tanks, and watch them go flying. It never gets old. The game gives you endless ways to cause mayhem, and that's what makes it so fun. In its core, Just Cause 3 is about blowing stuff up in the most creative and fun ways possible. It's the definition of a turn your brain off and enjoy game. If you're in the mood for some high-octane destruction with zero regard for realism, you won't regret spending time in Medici. Just be ready for things to get real messy real fast. Batman Arkham Knight. Batman Arkham Knight takes everything you loved about the earlier Arkham games and dials it up, delivering a massive, dark, and detailed Gotham City to explore. You're back in the cowl of the Caped Crusader, and this time, the stakes feel higher than ever. The story is intense, the gameplay is smooth, and of course it's full of the punchy, brutal combat that makes you feel like Batman in every way. The story picks up with Batman facing off against Scarecrow, who's threatening to blanket Gotham with his fear toxin. But the real twist is the Arkham Knight, a new villain with a serious vendetta against Batman. The mystery of who the Arkham Knight really is pulls you through the story, and trust me, the reveal is pretty satisfying, especially if you're a fan of the comics. The game's tone is darker, grittier, and filled with that signature Arkham atmosphere. Gotham looks absolutely stunning, but in that gothic, decaying kind of way. Now let's talk about the Batmobile, because this was one of the most hyped and sometimes criticized features. You finally get to tear through the streets of Gotham in Batman's iconic ride, and while it's a blast to drive, it's also a bit overused. The Batmobile sections can feel like they drag on, especially when you're stuck in tank mode, blasting away at drones. Don't get me wrong, the car is fun as hell when you're speeding through the city, launching out of it mid-chase, or using it in puzzle-solving scenarios. But the tank battles, they wear thin after a while. Still, having the Batmobile at your disposal is awesome, and it does add a new dynamic to the game. Combat is as slick as ever. Arkham Knight keeps that smooth, free-flowing combat system that the series is known for. You're dishing out justice with quick strikes, counters, and gadgets, and the rhythm of the fights is as satisfying as it gets. The enemy AI feels smarter, and they'll try to gang up on you or use more advanced tactics to take you down, but it only makes you feel more badass when you take out an entire room of thugs without breaking a sweat. The game's world is massive, and there's no shortage of things to do. The side missions are packed with fan-favorite villains like Two-Faced, Penguin, and Riddler, and they give you plenty of excuses to explore Gotham's dark alleys and rooftops. And yes, the Riddler's back with his endless puzzles, and this time he's got Batmobile challenges too. It can be a bit much, but if you're a completionist, you'll be all over it. Visually, Arkham Knight looks stunning. The rain-soaked streets, the neon signs reflecting off the puddles, and the sheer scale of Gotham all come together to create a city that feels alive, even though it's mostly abandoned because, you know, fear toxin. The attention to detail is top-notch, and flying through the city as Batman never gets old. Overall, Batman Arkham Knight is a fantastic finale to the Arkham trilogy. The story is gripping, the gameplay is tight, and you get to feel like the ultimate version of Batman. Despite a few hiccups with the Batmobile and the launch issues, it's still a must-play if you're a fan of the Dark Knight. You won't regret stepping into Gotham one last time. LA Noire. LA Noire is a game that breaks the mold of what you'd expect from an open-world crime drama. It's not just about gunfights and car chases. This is a game that puts your detective skills to the test. You play as Cole Phelps, a war hero turned cop, working his way up through the ranks of the LAPD in 1940s Los Angeles, and the vibe is pure noir, moody, dark, and full of moral gray areas. The real draw of LA Noire is its investigation mechanics. Each case you take on has you examining crime scenes for clues, interviewing witnesses and suspects, and making some tough calls. The game's innovative facial animation tech is still impressive even years later. You'll be studying people's faces during interrogations, trying to figure out if they're lying or telling the truth. It sounds simple, but damn, it can be tricky. You'll catch someone's shifty eye movement or a slight twitch, and that's your cue to press them harder or catch them in a lie. It's a slower, more methodical approach to gameplay, but when you nail a tough interrogation, it's super satisfying. Los Angeles is beautifully recreated in the game. Rockstar absolutely nailed the 1940s setting, from the classic cars to the period-accurate buildings and the overall atmosphere. The city feels alive even though the focus isn't really on causing chaos like in other Rockstar games. Instead, you're driving around, investigating, and solving cases at your own pace. That being said, the game does have some action. There are shootouts and car chases, but those moments take a back seat to the detective work. This is all about piecing together the puzzle.
Give me something, Velasco, or I'll take you back to the cells and tell the whole station you're a child molester. How long do you think you'll last?
Okay, I hear you.
The cases themselves range from murdered arson to uncovering corrupt dealings, and each one feels unique. Some are straightforward, while others get you deep into conspiracy territory. The further you progress, the more complex and darker the cases get, with Phelps dealing with the corruption of the LAPD, the mob, and some really heavy post-war themes. Phelps himself is an interesting character, not your typical Rockstar protagonist. He's more by the book, but he's got his own personal demons that unravel as the story moves forward. One area area where Noire sometimes stumbles is the pacing. The slow, deliberate style won't be for everyone, especially if you're used to faster paced open world games. Some of the interrogations can also feel frustrating, as the game doesn't always make it clear when you should accuse someone of lying or just doubt them. But that's part of the game's charm. It forces you to really pay attention and think like a detective. Visually, the game still holds up pretty well, especially the facial animations, which are the star of the show. The way characters' expressions change, sometimes subtly, sometimes obviously, adds a layer of realism that pulls you into the world. Overall, Noire is a unique and memorable experience, especially if you're a fan of crime dramas and detective stories. It's not about blowing stuff up or creating chaos, it's about unraveling mysteries and piecing together a larger, darker picture of post-war Los Angeles. If you're down for a game that makes you think and lets you step into the shoes of a hard-boiled detective, Noire is definitely worth your time. Well everyone, that was all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Now I will see you in the next one. Have a great day.